Hello, I'm Carolyn Charette, and this is What's Best for Kids. This is our first podcast episode, and I am excited to launch my podcast where I will be talking about all things related to children and doing what's best for them. Today, we are focusing on education and specifically learning to read. I was recently invited to be a guest on the Latter-day Saints podcast, where we talked about Utah's reading scores and a recent study that was released by the Gardner Institute that found that only 50% of Utah's third graders were reading on grade level. All the major media outlets picked this up last week and published stories about it. And it's been really fun to look at the scores and look at the excitement and the interest in reading in Utah. As I looked into the report, of course, I'm an educator. Well, maybe you don't know. I assume everyone on here is watching who's my friend already and knows that I'm an educator. And I work with American Prep charter schools. As soon as I saw the reports, I was super excited to read them. So I went to my computer, I looked at these reports, and you'll see, I'm showing, I think, on my screen now, this one from Fox. Nearly half of Utah's young students unable to read at grade level, report shows. Deseret News picked it up as well. About half of Utah third graders struggle with reading, so what can be done? And I started scrolling through these reading and excited to looking for, like, how did charter schools do? And did our scores get reported? We were super excited about our scores. And as I went through these, I realized there's nothing about charter schools in these articles, in these media articles. So I went to the report itself. It's called The Future is Watching, Understanding Utah's Early Literacy Landscape. And if you go to this first data chart that I looked at, you see all these, it's probably too tiny for you, but all of these red bars represent one of the school districts in Utah. The goal for reading in Utah is 70%, and only Park City made it at 70.1% of the traditional districts. So I did a big search. I did, your Control F for charter, and I found, they did mention charters one time in the report, and it was down here about curriculum and that each school and charter, each district charter school has to adopt science of reading aligned core curriculum and intervention programs. So I was pretty shocked that none of the charter schools were included in any of the report or reporting. And let me just tell you why that's kind of a big deal. It's because if you look at this, student enrollment in Utah, it's 657,000 students this year in Utah schools. 572 of those are in traditional districts, but 85,000 of them are in charters. 13% of the state's population of school-age kids are in charter schools. And so to leave out all the data from all of those schools and all those kids seemed amazing to me. And something that I wanted to talk about. So I decided to have that be my first podcast on what's best for kids. And I'll go back in a little bit of history and tell you why. About 25 years ago, I moved to Utah, having started a couple charter schools in other states, and started American Prep in 2003. So this is our 23rd year. And the reason I wanted to start a school was because I had worked with a school that used really good science of reading curriculum in Colorado. And when I moved to Utah, I wanted my kids to have that opportunity to be at a school where we used that kind of curriculum. Ours is called Direct Instruction and Reading Mastery. We actually have 15 components of our reading program, but Reading Mastery would be like the central component. And we have had really good scores for many, many, many years. I think it was 2010, we had 100% of our fifth graders proficient on the CRT test back in the day, was what it was called. We've just really had great success teaching kids to read with our programs. So in 2022, Senator Ann Milner passed what's famously known as SB 127. And SB 127 required all schools in the state of Utah to use science of reading curriculum and to test their kids and to publish their test results so we could C, who's meeting the new state statutorily required goal of 70% of the kids who could read on grade level in third grade. She set that bar. 70% third graders have to read on grade level. And it was off to the races. We tested our kids that first year, and we got our scores back. So I'm going to show those now. Let's see. These are 2024 scores. And this was the result. All the green ones you see here are charter schools, including the blue, which is our school. And then the pink are the districts. And so the first year we get the scores back. We had made the 72%. You can see that all the way down to North Summit, those are the schools that made the 70%. And the reason why our numbers are black here is because that's our school, but also we had 515 kids of the first 7 people, and the people who made the goal. We had way more students that we were testing at 515. We had way more economically disadvantaged kids at 34%. And we had way more kids who were learning English at about 30%. So we thought, oh, finally, the data is clear. It's going to be out there. Everyone's going to be able to see that science of reading really does work. And having done it 23 years, we have things we've learned that other schools could use, and it could help them be successful in teaching reading better in Utah. So that was exciting. What wasn't so exciting was that the State Office of Education, if you remember what I said in the beginning about the schools have to pick certain curriculum, the State Office of Education in SB 127 was tasked with the job of creating a list of curriculum that schools had to use in order to qualify as being teaching science of reading curriculum. And we were just astounded because the curriculum we were using was not approved. It was left off the list. It was not approved curriculum. So we started a little battle with saying, well, we're not changing our curriculum, we're not changing. And they said, well, you have to change it, else you're going to be out of compliance with this law. And we just kept pushing back and refusing. And unfortunately, some of these top performing charter schools changed theirs. They went ahead and just rolled over and changed it, even though their outcomes were fantastic. They were changing their curriculum. I mean, it was upsetting. And I kind of call it a battle in the reading wars. And I'll tell you in a second. Well, let me tell you now about why I say that. Reading, this is just a bunch of graphics about the reading wars. Since the 1960s, 70s, 80s, there have been these things called the reading wars, public ed. I assume everyone has heard of these, but it's probably not true unless you're really in this industry. And so the reading wars are centered around this idea that phonics, like there's whole language, and then there's phonics learning. And phonics is what we did for many, many decades. And then in the 70s, whole language became popular. And then kids started to not be able to be successful in reading, and people started having this war about, in education, what was better and what we should be using. Well, after a couple of decades of that, in the early 2000s, No Child Left Behind was passed, and it required that we use science-based learning. So in many places in the country, they just started using the good phonics programs again, and you saw scores starting to recover in some places. In Utah, we didn't get that until 2022. But I was so excited that we had gotten SB 127, so excited we had the scores coming in. We had the first year scores. They told us we had to change our programs. We said no. We got the second year of, before the second year of scores, they relented and said, it's okay, you don't have to change your program. But we're just not going to put you on the approved list, like you wouldn't get a green check by your curriculum, which is fine, as long as we can continue to use our programs. So in 2025, this year, these scores came in, and this is the ones that you saw, where Park City is the only district that made the 70%, and here they are at 70.1. But if you look at the districts above that, there's 6 charter districts that made the goal. And that was not mentioned anywhere in the reporting or in the media or in the report itself. So what's the big deal? What's the point? The point is we're still having some battles, and this could be one of them, and I hope not. It is my hope that now that people are being made aware that 13% of the state's kids were left out of those wild claims. I mean, the numbers may not change drastically, but I think it's really misleading to just say only one Utah district met the goal. When we met it this year, we met it last year. And why is that important? It's not because we want to toot our horn at all. It's because the whole idea of charter schools was that we would be able to implement innovative practices, try things, and then if we have good results, other schools could adopt those so that other kids could benefit from that. Other kids could find success, and the success could start spreading across Utah. And what I'm really nervous about, and I don't want to happen, is for people to think that science of reading isn't working in Utah. It is working. There are pockets of amazing success, and we've only had a couple of years, and we're seeing more and more schools and more teachers gain expertise in this area. And when you have an article that says 50% aren't making it, it makes it feel like everyone's failing and we may need to try something new. And my hope is that we don't try something new, that we go with what works, we continue on course, we use the same assessment we've used the last 2 years, we continue to use the same assessment so we can get good longitudinal data, and we just help more kids learn how to read better. So I guess I'm hoping the media will pick up on this and want to do a second report. And maybe the Gardner Institute will want to do an addendum that talks about all of the schools that made the goal and what they're using so that it can be shared with other schools and more kids can succeed. Because again, that's what we're doing here on this podcast. We're talking about what's best for kids. And we're hoping that what's best for kids can happen in reading in Utah. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope you'll join me again on What's Best for Kids.